What's going on, my Jets family? I appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you for being here for the Take Flight Spit and Fire podcast. So, as you guys know, week one happened. I got into my eval. We talked all about Zach Wilson and everything going on Monday's episode. Please check that out. If you haven't yet, I would also love if you can please subscribe to the channel. You can do so by clicking on the logo in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen right over here. Nice and easy. But as we know, week two is upon us, and week two is a big one. Our Jets are home with the New England Patriots coming to town this Sunday, as you guys know, 1 p.m. on CBS. Or obviously, if you're not, in a local market, probably some other way. But this game is huge because this is the first Jets home game with fans in 2 years and against the Patriots, no less. So the Jets, as you've seen on Twitter, have challenged the fans. I brought it up in the past. Guys, I can't be there, unfortunately, but those of you who are, you got to be loud. You got to make noise. You got to be loud. Shake that place. When Mac Jones is on the field, I don't want him hearing anything. He can't hear. He's got to walk up individually to every lineman and every receiver because he can't hear what's going on. So that's my challenge. Let's make some noise. Make that stadium rock. So again, first Jet home game with fans in 2 years, big deal. But a huge matchup, we got the two rookie quarterbacks. We got our guy, Zach Wilson versus Mac Jones, the Patriots rookie pick. Now, as we saw in week one, Zach Wilson had an up and down game, but as we talked about on Monday, there's a reason he had an up and down game. Like the offensive line didn't help him. It didn't do him any favors in that first half. The receivers dropped a lot of key passes. We talked all about this. But in the first half, he was 6 for 16 for 84 yards, no touchdowns, and a pick. And the pick wasn't really his fault. It was a bad read. He learned from that, and that's what we hoped. I talked about hopefully he learned, you can't make that kind of throw in the NFL. But in the second half, they adjusted. And that, as remember we talked about last week, is the biggest, on Monday, that's the biggest thing, the adjustments, making those second half adjustments. Because as we very well remember from the error of the last head coach, we don't want to talk about, that was the problem. Remember, I joked about the square peg or the round hole square peg, just always trying to get it in, doesn't adjust, doesn't change. We adapted. The defense looked a lot better in the second half. McCaffrey got much less yards. And in the second half, Wilson went 14 for 21 for 174 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Ended the game, as you guys remember, good stats, 20 for 37, 258 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. But as we just said, when the team picked up around him, he looked good. He looked good always to begin with, but as we know, we talked about, he was running for his life. Like he was legit running everywhere, even a little bit in the second half. But when those adjustments were made, he looked great. And that was his first game ever. And he almost brought the Jets back. So our future's looking bright. Now we talk about Mac Jones on the other side of the ball. He had a really good game. You can even argue he was the best rookie quarterback week one. You could definitely make that argument. He went 29 for 39 for 281 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks, but had a QB rating of 102.6. Wilson was great, again, especially in that second half. It was higher than that, but overall together, he had an 82.9. So Mac Jones had a very good game week one, and he looks like, it has only been 1 week. And as you guys remember, we talked about Mac Jones when I did all my QB eval. I liked what I saw in him. I liked almost everything I saw in him. He checked a lot of my boxes. But as you guys remember, it's hard to get a knock, hard to get a read. I talked about that, with these powerhouse teams. Like we talked about Fields with Ohio State. He's with Alabama. Remember the joke we talked about that Sam Darnold would have killed somebody last year to have receivers of the talent he had in college. So it was hard to get a real gauge on him to, for how much was him and how much was the system and the talent. But so far, he's looked the part. So this is going to be an interesting matchup. So the Jets' keys to victory. Let's get into it. If the Jets are going to win this game, one of the first things they need to do is something they couldn't do last week. And again, it was once against one of the better running backs in the NFL. Well, this week, Damien Harris played well week one, but he's not considered one of the best running backs in the NFL. So this isn't Christian McCaffrey. There's no excuses this week. Week one, yes, it was McCaffrey. I pointed that out, this perspective. This dude runs on everybody. He's one of the best in the game. We have to shut down Damien Harris. So in week one against the Dolphins, Damien Harris had 100 yards, had 23 carries, more importantly, 23 carries for 100 yards and averaged 4.3 yards. That's a great average for that amount of carries, but that's a lot of carries. And that amount of carries tells me two things. One, they view Damien Harris as a workhorse. Like, this is their guy. Like, remember, we've talked about, in the NFL in the past, that used to be how leagues were. Your Curtis Martins, your LaDainian Tomlinsons. Not the case anymore. There's only a handful of guys, but they're viewing Harris as one of those guys, and understandably so. He was a high pick out of Alabama, and he was presumed to even be a first-round pick when he was taken in that draft 2 years back, I believe. So he's the workhorse. It goes through him. So you shut him down. That makes a difference because point number two, they have a rookie quarterback. And yes, Mac Jones looked really good, but if you have a running back getting the ball 23 times, that tells me you're relying on the run game to open up the pass game for the rookie quarterback to take pressure off of him. It's kind of brilliant. That's how it works. That's what you want. He's easing his way into the NFL. I'm going to mention this later, but with Zach Wilson, we've talked about him. I think he's going to be great, but I want all the pressure on him now. The kid's in his second week ever. You don't want the game on his shoulders. Hopefully he can rise to the occasion, but you want a good running game like the Patriots have right now and had in week one if you watch the game. Yes, Mac Jones looked good, but the running game opened up the pass game. It looked good. Damien Harris looked good, and he's their workhorse. So we couldn't shut down McCaffrey. We have to shut down Damien Harris. That's it. Now, we talked about, our run defense. We talked about Foley Fatukasi in the past. That's one guy we've mentioned. One thing I do want to mention, though, because talking quickly, I'm going to transition back to our defensive linemen, but I do want to mention that the Patriots do have a quality offensive line. So I went and looked at their depth chart because you guys know I do a lot of evals, so I know a lot of these young guys. I like Isaiah Wynn at left tackle. Mike Uwenu is very slept on. That kid was definitely underappreciated at left guard. David Andrews is a very good center, but I do really like the potential of Shaq Mason. And then you got Trent Brown at right tackle. That's a quality offensive line. That is a legit quality offensive line. So the Jets' defensive line needs to make noise. They need to get through them because these are quality guys. Again, I'm going through this line. Literally, Isaiah Wynn is arguably the weakest link on that line, and he's not a weak link. This is a quality offensive line. So our defense needs to get the hell at it, which brings me to point number two, which is why I mentioned those guys. So one, we've got to shut down the running back. Two, the pass defense was good week one. And you guys remember I pointed that out stats after the game. It was good week one. It just didn't translate to sacks. So that's what needs to change. And the numbers, to give you a perfect example here, John Franklin-Myers, Quinnen Williams, and Bryce Huff, the three of them, all had 3 pressures each. So that's 9 pressures just among the 3 of them. Also, we had 8 QB hits that game. Like we said, it only translated to 1 sack, but the Panthers had 10 QB hits. That's not a big difference, 8 and 10. But their 10 QB hits translated to 6 sacks. So like I was kind of just saying, our defensive line, specifically that pass rush, is not bad. Specifically, Franklin-Myers, Quinnen, Rankins had potential to look good. Foley's looked excellent in the run game. There's a lot of potential there. There really, really is. And I think that was something that I mentioned after the game. I think Salah's going to address. Salah's going to address, well, the pass rush was there. The QB hits were there. The pressures were there. Why is it not translating to sacks? So I believe, if again, I don't know Robert Saleh, but I imagine that's what the defense addressed this week. Why is that not translating? And how do we make that translate to the right category, the sack category? Which brings me to my next point, which is JFM and Foley, guys. John Franklin-Myers and Foley are really looking like emerging stars on the Jets D. Keep your eyes on those boys. Like I mentioned in the 2018 draft when we took Foley, I liked him over the Nathan Shepard pick. When we took Shepard in the 3rd round, I was like, okay, we took Foley in the 6th, and I was psyched. I really liked this kid at UConn. I really did. And he stepped up. He's looked great in the run game. I got some numbers on these 2 guys to bring you guys quick. So we'll start with Foley first. I mentioned him first. So where do I have Foley? Here we go. So Foley's already one of the best run stoppers in the league, like we mentioned, but he's developing as a pass rusher. As you've watched over the last year or two, his pass rush moves are developing. In fact, I've seen 1 or 2 nasty swim moves last year. The dude is developing, and his PFF speaks for itself. His PFF in 2019 was an 81.6, one of the best grades on the Jets. And then last year, it was 80.1, again, one of the best grades on the Jets. So this dude looks great. And JFM, we saw week 1, dominant all over the quarterback. Last year, he had career highs in everything. In 2020, JFM on his own, just him, had 27 QB pressures. That was second on the Jets. He had 11 QB knockdowns. That was first on the Jets and 4 more than Quinnen. And he also had 13 QB hits, which was tied for second on the Jets and only 1 less than Quinnen. So he had a quality year. And as I mentioned, hoping that these two guys rising up in week 1, the Jets' highest graded defenders on defense were John Franklin-Myers with an 80.7 grade, which is awesome, and Foley with a 74.5. So these two men are emerging stars. Keep your eyes on them because they're looking good. So point number 3 to the Jets' victory is the Patriots are going to try to shut down Corey Davis. It's obvious. We saw week 1 how talented, he's become. And how good he's looked. We mentioned the chemistry developing, how he wants to be a wide receiver 1. He stepped up last year. He's really looked the part so far. And last week, we'll get into his numbers. But one thing I want to mention quick with the Patriots, matching up against Corey Davis. As you guys remember, we found this out in August. Stephon Gilmore is out. He's on the physical and able to perform. He's going to be out at least 6 weeks. So he's not playing, which is big for Corey Davis. If Stephon Gilmore was playing, he would be on Corey Davis. It would be like glue, like the two of them just following each other all over the field. But Gilmore's not in there. However, the Patriots have been blessed Patriots, with obviously paying Stephon Gilmore, but finding an undrafted gem in J.C. Jackson. J.C. Jackson was a guy, I don't know if you guys remember, I wanted to trade for when there were, those rumors that he didn't want to take his tender. I really like this kid. He's got a lot of potential. He's looked like a CB1 when he's played. So don't sleep on him covering Corey Davis. And that's why you notice, and you might notice on Twitter, people are like, the Patriots are going to shut down Corey Davis, but Gilmore is not playing. It's because J.C. Jackson has looked so good. So Mike said, in my opinion, he looks like a CB1. Not going to be an easy matchup. But like we mentioned, Zach and Corey, their timing is getting better week to week. Their chemistry is getting better. They're developing. And hopefully that chemistry will be too good for the Patriots to stop. Hopefully it will be. So a little bit on Corey Davis. In Corey Davis's 4 years with the Titans, he never had more than 5 touchdowns a season. And in those 4 years, he's never had more than 11. Well, as you guys know, week 1, he had 2 touchdowns. And like we just said, he's had 5 the most in his season. And was just 3 yards away from 100. So he's doing what he said he was going to do. He's like, I'm going to be a wide receiver 1. And he absolutely, like no question, looks like a wide receiver 1. Look at people's takes. They went from, will Corey Davis be a wide receiver 1 to now they're saying, is Corey Davis going to be one of the best receivers in the league? That's what they're saying now. It's changed. He's showing that he's that part. So not having Gilmore is huge, but don't sleep on J.C. Jackson. That's all I got to say. So other than Corey Davis, the other wide receivers and tight ends have to step up. They really got to step up. But like I'm going to mention, if the offensive line doesn't step it up in a big way, it ain't going to matter. It ain't going to matter diddly squat. But first, let's talk about those other wide receivers and stuff. So Elijah Moore last week had his what you'd call welcome to the NFL moment. And so did Elijah Vera-Tucker. AVT allowed, if I remember correct, 6 pressures and a sack, which is not great, but again, welcome to the NFL moment. He's going to be great. He has all the potential. Same thing with Elijah. All the numbers, everything we've talked about still exists. It hasn't gone out the window. It's just, again, like I've mentioned before, adapting to the NFL, which is why, as I've also said and mentioned with you guys, injuries happen a lot. Rookies tend to get hurt often because it's a different speed. The NFL is different. So he had his welcome to the NFL moment, multiple key drops, ended the game with negative yards. Obviously, that needs to change. So we just talked about how special he can be. It's time to show it. I mean, that's how I'm looking at it. Like, yes, there's your welcome to the NFL moment. You can't keep having it. Like, if you keep having it, wasn't that the argument with Sam Darnold? Like, you can keep making the same mistake. So that has to change. So Elijah Moore had his welcome to the NFL moment. It's time to turn it around. It's time to show what you're supposed to be. And Jamison Crowder and Keelan Cole are back. So the 4 of them together should be big factors for Zach Wilson. Because you guys remember all offseason, I'd mentioned it too. The beat writers had mentioned it. I was talking about it also, that Keelan Cole looks like that wide receiver too. And people were saying, what about Mims? We'll talk about Mims a little bit, but, Keelan Cole, I was saying, is going to fit that role. He really is an excellent route runner. He has a lot of potential. He did well last year. He had over 600 yards, I think 5 touchdowns. He's a quality guy. Remember, we talked about Douglas wanted to trade for him for years. So he's back. We know who Jamison Crowder is. We know who Corey Davis is. We know who Elijah Moore is supposed to be. Those are the four guys, in my opinion. Those are the four guys that need to be the guys. That together, them being the guys will make this work. Now, you also have Berrios. He's going to play a role, but that's going to be limited, obviously, with Crowder back. And again, we mentioned Mims before. I'd thrown it out again. I won't get into it. We talked about it last week. Salah flat out said he's behind Corey Davis, Elijah Moore, and Berrios, and Cole and Crowder now that they're back. So Mims was not seeing the field before. It's going to be interesting to see what happens because Cole and Crowder are ahead of him. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. He's really going to have to earn it, is what it's really going to, if you want to quickly talk about it. He's going to get very limited opportunities. So the message to Denzel Mims is in those limited opportunities, you have to do something special, like absolutely special, if you want to move up the roster. I mentioned that last year with Bryce Huff. Bryce Huff stepping up with limited opportunities and becoming the guy, and he's done that, and that's why he's getting more opportunities. That's what he's going to have to do. But on to point number 4. And point number 4 was the biggest problem last week. You guys remember, point number 4 was the biggest nightmare last week. And that nightmare was the Jets' offensive line. The offensive line last week was literally abysmal. It was absolutely awful. So one quick thing I do want to point out, though, which is important, as you guys may remember, during the game, I tweeted out that most of the Jets' offensive line issues, from my perspective, seem to be miscommunication and lack of proper positioning or timing. That's what it definitely appeared to be to me. That, again, it's not like Mekhi Becton all of a sudden got bad, or AVT is not what he's supposed to be, or McGovern lied and he's not good in this system. Like, that's not what's happening. They're out of sync. And that's what I tweeted. And it's still aggravating, too. The offensive line was horrendous, again, no matter how you cut it. But it's a big difference with the offensive line being bad because the players are bad, or of the offensive line being bad because they're just not playing well together. It seemed to be the latter, and that's what I pointed out during the game. And shout out to my guy, DJ Bienemy, who's a great beat reporter. DJ Bienemy, I noticed this week, he said he went back and actually looked at the All-22 and confirmed the same thing. He confirmed that the offensive line issues seem to be, like I said, miscommunication, lack of proper positioning or timing, which are all fixable issues. I mean, they're all fixable. So my message is it's time to gel to the offensive line. Same thing, you have a rookie quarterback back there. I know you're trying to gel and get it together, but Zach's back there. Our future is behind you. Our legacy potentially is back there. It's time. Like, get it together and gel now. No more excuses. It's all fixable. Fix it. That's the message. Fix it. Get it together. Protect our freaking future and our long-term investment. So as you guys know, Mekhi Becton is out. Fan is in at left tackle. Moses at right tackle. So my point number 5 for you guys is our young DBs. Our Jets young DBs have stepped up and played well. And that's been a big thing. I've mentioned with you guys, we talked about it. Actually, I do apologize. I want to go back for a sec. Just when we were talking about the offensive line, I do want to mention, as you guys remember, I wasn't happy with the tight end play. Remember on Monday, I mentioned a tight end's job in my mind is a big body guy. If your quarterback's under duress, I don't care where you are, turn and make the ball, make the play, use your body. I want better from our tight end, just period. So moving on to our DBs, our Jets young DBs stepped up and played well last week. Hall and Echoes on the outside, Carter 2, Michael Carter II, and Guidry in the slot, which, as you guys remember, excuse me, as you guys remember, I talked about how much I loved their potential. Those 4 guys specifically. I said how Hall and Guidry are just second-year guys. Hall was a late-round pick, and Guidry was undrafted. And then you have Echols and Carter II, who were both late-round picks this year. So the potential is there, but they're going to need to develop. But I liked the potential a lot. The beauty of it is they've looked good. I've been saying since the offseason, it's Bryce Hall lockdown season. Like I'd mentioned you guys before, how I view him as the CB1 and why I love his potential. But the big issue, as you see in the tweet I put up here, in the message out, you guys remember last week I said the safety play was not that good. The safety play leaved a lot to be desired. For example, Robbie Anderson's big catch and big touchdown wasn't on the young DBs. It was on the safeties. So, and like I mentioned, last week, just the backfield in general and safety help over the top seemed to be non-existent. And the backfield seemed weak, like with that Anderson deep ball. So the safety play has not been good. Marcus May kind of confirmed that last week with PFF of 54.7. So we're hoping, that steps up because Joyner is out. LaMarcus Joyner, the guy we talked about that was going to be the tandem with May, is done. He's done for the season. So hopefully we get Ashton Davis back by like week 4, week 5. That's a potential. But right now, other than May, who did not look great week one, wasn't the worst. He was good at tackling, but not great in coverage. The other two safeties are Shedrick Redwine and Gerard Wilson. And Redwine did not look good week one. So even though the young DBs look promising, and that's a great aspect, the safety play was not good. So that's a big issue. The last thing that is a problem is our Jets running backs need to actually show. Our running backs need to actually show up for the game because they didn't show up week one. They just weren't there. So before, we mentioned how the Patriots ran the ball effectively and why they did it with a rookie quarterback. They took the pressure off of him to open up the passing game. Well, we have a rookie quarterback, so we should be doing the same freaking thing. The running game is important. So week one, our running game looked awful. And yes, I agree the offensive line was a big part. The offensive line not playing well, not being able to open holes was a big part. But as you guys remember, I talked about it week one. I still felt even so the running backs didn't look good. On second attempts, cutbacks, they did not look good. They were running sluggishly downhill. It did not look good at all. I was not impressed. Between Tevin Coleman, between Tevin Coleman, Ty Johnson, and Michael Carter, the Jets rushed for a total of 45 yards. 45 yards the whole game. That's pathetic. It's pathetic. But here's in my opinion, a bright spot. LaMichael Pirine is no longer on the injury report. So LaMichael Pirine, as you guys remember, I mentioned, I didn't view him as a power back, but he proved me wrong. Remember, I'm a fan now. I like LaMichael Pirine. That dude moves the pile. He's a power running back. He is. So he's back, which is exciting. And Josh Adams has been elevated. You guys know how I feel about Josh Adams. I've mentioned it before, how I felt he couldn't do any more than he's done with the opportunities given to make the team, to always averaging the most of anybody. Like, he can't control the opportunities he gets. Doesn't work like that. So having these two power backs between LaMichael Pirine and Josh Adams now available, which weren't available week one, that's exciting. That's some interesting potential there. So like we mentioned, Zach may eventually be able to do it all, but not as a rookie in his second game. Again, Mac Jones looked very good, played well, but the running game opened up the passing game. It's very important to have that. We didn't have that. So again, I mentioned all my points. One of the biggest ones, obviously with shutting down their running back and everything, is the offensive line playing well. The offensive line needs to play well, needs to gel, and hopefully that will allow the running backs to do what they need to do, and the wide receivers need to create separation. So that's my take for all the game. I appreciate all you guys here, like you always are. I want to go through all your guys' comments quick. So again, I always appreciate all you guys here. Appreciated Snoopy, Jenny, Kevin, all you guys. Super, super appreciated. Snoopy saying Jets, Jets. He's ready. He's ready to rock. This could be it, man. I mean, it's week 2. So again, back to that first point we made before. Circling back to that. This is our first home game in 2 years. This is the first time with fans, my apologies. This is the first time the fans get to be back in the stadium in 2 years. We got to make it rock. It's the Patriots, man. Mac Jones should not be able to hear shit. So I'm with Snoopy, man. Jets, Jets. Like he says, the things I'm tired of most is when other teams' fans say it's the Jets, should just be easy. It's the rhetoric. And if you guys remember, I talked about that, a couple weeks back. I pointed out how, it's true. And I gave actual facts to, support that. Just quick in a nutshell, remember, it was very simple. They always say we're the worst team. Well, the Lions ain't won shit. They don't talk about them the same way. And they say, oh, it's our quarterback situation. The Browns have gone through infinitely more quarterbacks than us in the last couple of years. They don't say the same thing. I've obviously expanded more upon that, but it's proof that we've always been the low-hanging fruit. It's the low-hanging fruit that they love to, smack around. And that's going to change. It's going to change. And remember, like you say right there on the bottom, it's the Mike Tyson quote. Everybody's got a plan till they get punched in the mouth. And that changes things. So Zach got punched in the mouth last week, but you remember I pointed out that when Zach gets punched in the mouth, that's where the improvisation starts and it actually starts to thrive. Man, the receivers dropped so many crucial balls, but that throw to Elijah Moore was amazing. Like, if Elijah would have caught that, that would have been number 1 on SportsCenter for like the next 2 weeks. Like, that was a perfect throw, moving in the pocket to set his feet and quickly make an amazing 50-yard throw with perfect accuracy. I think it was like 40 something, but still unbelievable. So Jenny points out this week is even more important than last week, not just because of who they're playing. Again, I agree, Jenny. Not just because of who they're playing, but because we're back. We're back in the stadiums. So all you guys that can be there, I mean, enjoy it, make it rock, make it happen. So Snoopy makes an interesting point. I don't know if you guys saw me make this take on Twitter. I think it was like 2 days ago or so. He says you don't bench talent like Mims on a talentless team. That's a little far, I'd say, though, because you got to admit Corey Davis is the wide receiver one. That guy's super talented. Keelan Cole's looked the part. Now I don't know if you were tuning in. About like there was a month or so ago when I was talking about it. I mentioned it on the channel. Salah always says nothing's given away here. Nothing's given. Everything's earned. Mims wasn't there, and Cole was. And the beat writers and I mentioned, from what they said, they talked about, him being, the better route runner, fitting the system better because Cole is a better route runner. Mims can definitely be the guy. I mean, if you guys remember, I'd mentioned, same thing before we signed Corey Davis, before all the free agents, before Keelan Cole. I pointed out that Denzel Mims had wide receiver one potential. Obviously, he hasn't reached it yet, but he has that potential. That potential's still there. He obviously has to earn it because that's how it works. That's what you want, right? You don't want somebody like I mentioned. I think it was the last time we talked about it. You don't want them saying, "Oh, well, now that you're ready, you're the guy," even though this other guy's looked unbelievable. We've seen with teams where the starting quarterback gets hurt and the backup looks unbelievable, wins like 5 or 6 games. The starter gets healthy and they let the backup keep playing because you always ride the hot hand. Remember, Sal even said that you ride the hot hand. Well, they believe in Keelan Cole. He looks to be the wide receiver too. It's Mims's to take. Moore didn't look that good, but again, if he becomes the guy he's supposed to be, and we all know who Crowder is. Crowder is definitely the guy. What surprised me most was Berrios. I thought Mims was above Berrios, I'll be honest. I would have put him at wide receiver 5, to be honest. I was surprised he was wide receiver 6 behind Berrios. So it's an interesting situation. And Jenny says, I have faith Mims will find a role. It's the same thing like I mentioned last year with Bryce Huff. If you guys remember, I was hugely high on him before he became big, before he became good. And if you guys remember, my take was he's an undrafted guy and he's going to get limited opportunities. At the time, I thought it would be behind guys like Jabari Zuniga because the draft had just happened. But he was an undrafted guy. So it was going to be hard for him to earn time. But when he got that time, he needed to show. You need to show what you can do in the limited reps you get. And that will allow you to get more reps. And that's exactly what Bryce Huff did. Bryce Huff did exactly that. So Denzel Mims has to do exactly that. They say he doesn't know the playbook. Learn the playbook. Show the coaches you know it forward and backward. Close your eyes and tell them to pick something, and you'll tell them something. That's what you need to do. So you need to earn it. I mean, and I've mentioned it before, same thing. We're all Jet fans. We're all Jet fans here. Like when Sam Darnold left, everyone was saying, if you're still a Sam Darnold fan, become a Carolina Panthers fan. You're a Jet fan. You want your team to do good. If Keelan Cole balls out, if Keelan Cole, let's say, gets 700-800 yards, you're not going to be upset. You're not going to be like, oh, man, Denzel Mims didn't get 700-800. Keelan Cole's still a young dude. So if Corey Davis and Keelan Cole and Jamison Crowder and Elijah Moore, if the 4 of them ball out and get like 4,000 yards with Zach Wilson, I mean, I hope Denzel Mims finds a future, but I know we're all going to feel the same way. We're going to be like, this is great. What we have right now works. So I hope Denzel Mims finds a role, but at the same time, I believe in the system right now. I believe that it's either going to be Cole or Mims will step up. There's a lot of talent there. But now that Cole and Crowder are back, that's huge. They're going to see a lot more time, a lot more time. Like you said, Jenny, nailed on. I like today that LaFleur said he made fixes in real time. That was not the case. I mentioned that. Remember, right before halftime, I said, okay, well, that was my literal thought. Well, the last 2 years, the biggest issue has been, well, this doesn't work. Let's come out in the second half and do the exact same thing. And just keep doing it until it works. Because why the hell not? That was what we had to deal with. So my big question was, are they going to adapt? Are they going to change? Are they going to see what the Panthers are doing and change alignments to what works to utilize the strengths they have? And the answer was yes. McCaffrey had significantly less yards in the second half. Wilson was able to bring the team basically back in his first game ever as a rookie quarterback. It was exciting. So that is huge. Those second half adjustments are not talked about enough. Not talked about enough. Kevin says, other than the O-line. The O-line was rough, man. But again, like I said, it's a challenge to them. I felt that way, and DJ confirmed it. He went back, and I remember he said after the All-22, he felt the way as I was watching the game. I felt it. As I was watching the game, I literally felt with our offensive line that they just weren't gelling, that there was miscommunication between them. They were in the wrong position or the timing was off. That seemed to be the biggest problem. And they don't have a choice. Like, again, we just mentioned it. That was my challenge. Our future is behind you. Like, I understand that you're trying to get it together, but it's not acceptable. This is the NFL. You're all grown men making a lot of money. Our future is behind you. Protect him. Please, please get the shit together and protect that young quarterback. Because like Kevin said, he's developing. He's showing promise. You got to keep that kid upright. But like he also says, don't expect the playoffs this year. Same thing, man. Remember, I mentioned the same thing. I mean, it would be awesome to sneak in. Like, it would be cool to be a wild card. Like, and remember, I mentioned it. That was my take, and I'm sticking to that. So don't forget. I was saying, if the Jets sneak into the playoffs, even in a wild card, Robert Saleh wins Coach of the Year. That's been my take. I've said it for over like 2 months now. I stick to that. If the Jets make the playoffs, which they haven't made in over a decade, automatic. Robert Saleh, Coach of the Year, automatic. Maybe even Joe Jugler's GM of the Year. Very possible. And at that point, maybe Zach's Rookie of the Year. Maybe Elijah is. So much exciting stuff. We don't know. There's a lot of potential here. But like Kevin points out, he's developing. There's a lot of exciting stuff. But like I pointed out with my point number 4, none of it matters if the offensive line can't produce. It doesn't matter how talented your receivers are. Doesn't matter how talented your quarterback is if the offensive line can't block. So got to get the shit together and got to get it quick. Like really quick. So like Kevin says, he likes what I saw out of Zach. He makes a point, we primarily need to running back to get into the groove. Offensive line didn't help. That's the way I looked at it. Like, clearly the offensive line didn't help. But again, if you guys remember, my take on Michael Carter was one of his best traits in college was his patience. One of his best traits was waiting for holes to develop. So even though, yes, the offensive line didn't look good, I didn't like what I saw in the running backs. I thought they were sloppy. And of course, you got Tevin Coleman averaging, I've got it right here, I think it's like 2-point-something yards. I'm bringing it up right here. Tevin Coleman averaged 2.7 yards. Ty Johnson, 3.8. Michael Carter, 1.5. So I mentioned, LaMichael Pirine being back, being healthy, the power back in the mix, and another power back. Remember, we talked all about Josh Adams. Every chance he's been the best one in the room. He can't control the amount of carries he gets, and that's what people say. Oh, well, he doesn't get the ball enough. Well, he doesn't control that. He can't hand himself or put himself in the game. But every time he plays, he's the best running back. And it just so happens he's a big beast who's a bull, who's also fast. So that is interesting. I hope the two of them get a chance because the running game was non-existent. Even with how bad the offensive line was, like Kevin said, you need someone to get in a groove, and no one got in a groove. It was bad, like just really, really bad. Kevin said, I liked Michael Carter last week. He wasn't bad. He didn't get many opportunities. I'll be honest there. He only was allowed 4 carries. And out of those 4 carries, he didn't get much. But also in, I believe, the passing game, I have it right here. Yes, he was only given 2 catches. He made a good catch. He did make a good catch of 14 yards. I'd like to see more in the running game just because, again, I come back to what I remember in college. His big thing was his patience. The big thing was, even if the offensive line didn't look as good, he had that, I don't want to say Le'Veon Bell, so I'm not, that LaDainian Tomlinson-like patience that you don't normally see in running backs anymore. So Tom's here. Appreciate you, Tom. Shout out my man. Appreciate all you guys. Love it. That was the big thing, if you remember, like during the offseason. And I was just surprised because, again, DJ and Connor don't work for the same paper. And even though they've spoken before and they've become close, they work for different papers. So the fact that they're saying the identical thing, remember, it was like identical. Like DJ said it, I spoke to him. You can check out the article, wrote a whole thing on it. DJ said it, I spoke to him, messaged Connor. Connor confirmed it like verbatim, like said the same thing, that he was just linear. He didn't have the route running ability. And obviously, as we know, he had problems in the offseason. The big issue now is he's got to earn it. That's exactly what it is. Remember, nothing is given away. It's that simple, just like I said before. Mims is healthy now. If he's ready to go, he's got to earn it. With the limited opportunities he gets, he stepped up last week with a 40-yard catch. He's got to keep doing that. Keep stepping up with the opportunities you get, and you'll get more. Worked for Bryce Huff, and that's how it works. It's that simple. Like Steven said, and I mentioned that too, and I didn't want to crap on Mike LaFleur too much, but if you guys remember, check Twitter, I said the same thing. I felt that even though, again, the offensive line didn't look good, I didn't feel like I saw what I was expecting to see. Like you guys remember, again, excuse me. You guys remember, again, it's an altered offense. It's a version of that original Mike Shanahan pass to Kyle. But still, we've seen more slants and utilizing players to their abilities and more gadget plays, for example, or a screen. Or it didn't, or something, like a play action to open up a deep pass. It just didn't feel right. It felt like Zach Wilson was being handcuffed. I'll be honest. That's what it felt like. It felt like Mike LaFleur was massively limiting what he was throwing at Zach Wilson because it was his first game. And you guys remember my take. He's shown it. He's one of the most intelligent guys there is, always learning, always processing. I'm not saying, and I mentioned it before, it's not time to put the game on his shoulders. It's not time to Aaron Rodgers this shit. It's not time yet. But it's time to open it up a little bit. It's time to show him what he can do. Give him more opportunity. Allow him to, make one or two decisions, or give him more reads or more potential play calls, or open up the playbook potentially more. That's what you want to see. So that's exciting. Blunt's going to poop on Adam Gase, so that's fun. If you do it, video it and put it on YouTube because it'll go viral. So that's my only take. Make sure somebody's got the camera. I'll probably throw up, so I'm not the best one to hold it. But someone else, make sure they got the camera because that'll be gold on YouTube. They had some funny stuff going on here. Steve and Tom are talking about where they're living. So Snoopy asked a question, and again, so I'm going to end pretty quick. If you guys have any questions, please shoot them right now. Anything you want to ask, anything you want to know. So he says, what do you think is Mac Jones' ceiling player comparison? My biggest thing, and again, as you guys remember, I never crapped on Mac Jones. I always said consistently it was just impossible to gauge. I remember the joke of Sam Darnold not having nearly anywhere the same talent, the offensive line looking good. But remember, my whole QB eval with why everyone was saying, oh, Zach Wilson plays inferior competition, but that's not the point. He's not in the same system that Ohio State is, that Alabama is. And we talked about that. That's system quarterback for a reason. Not, that excuse people make. The actual point that these teams are always the best. They're powerhouses. They consistently have that. So in college, it allows the most talented guys to be there. Look at the guys he's had at receivers. Jerry Jones. Jerry Jeudy. I was Jerry Jones. That's funny. Jerry Jeudy. I can't believe I'm blanking at the moment, which is killing me because you guys can help me out. There's so many wide receivers that guy's had and quality offensive line too. So it was always hard for me to gauge. It was hard for me to get a good determination on Mac Jones because for those reasons, I felt, I couldn't really decipher like I could with Zach how much was him and how much was that system, that amazing coaching with great talent around him with those systems. Like, remember I talked about with fail safes built in and things like we talked about fake read progressions built in. Zach's different. Remember Snoopy, I don't have the time to get into it. Please check it out. It's my first podcast ever. It's like 40 minutes on just QB eval. It's the first one ever up on here. It's all about it's different. It's different. That kid elevated everyone around him. It was a totally different situation. He has that special ed factor. I talked about the cerebral traits, the things I look for beyond arm strength that he just had in Spade. He checked every box of what I look for, and his potential, I've said it before, is as good as anybody. Zach Wilson, with as much as he's learning, the ability he's gaining, how much he takes in, he's a film junkie, like I pointed out, all of that. His potential is to be as good as anybody, and I mean that. Anybody. But please check out that first episode because it's a 40-minute version of that. Like Kevin points out, we could hardly get any pass plays in the first in the flat, never mind deep. That was the point, the offensive line. And that's why, as you guys remember, I put it on the tight ends because I don't know how solid coaches is not me, but that's always been a thing for me with tight ends. If the tight end's job is to be the quick route right in the middle, if the quarterback's under duress, your job immediately is to sense that, turn around, and be a target every single time. Like, use your big body, even if it's against the linebacker, toughen the hell up. Use your big body to its advantage. So that's why I wasn't impressed with the linebackers. Griffin's a big dude. Croft's a big dude. Use those big freaking bodies, damn it. Provide a quick option to Zach Wilson. Take the hit. Take the clock. But that's your freaking job when the offensive line is failing. So fix it. Steven points that out. It's possible, man, because everyone says how it looks so bad in the first half, and then all of a sudden they got it together. It could be that simple. I mean, there are other factors, obviously. Don't get me wrong. There's plenty of other factors as well. But that could be a factor. James Morgan could have been paid under the, again, I'm not saying it's true, but he could have been paid under the condition that you're going to tell us X, Y, and Z. Obviously, there's certain things he can't say, but he could say, you know, how they audible or what they aligned. There's certain things he can tell them that is massively vital. And that would force Robert Saleh to sit on the sideline and be like, oh, shit, and change everything around and mastermind it, which he did. That's a major credit, how he flipped it around. Kevin points it out, and again, remember, it was either my point 2 or 3, but it's just as important. You got to get at Mac Jones, because like I pointed out, the pressures were there last week. The Jets had 8 QB hits, and the Panthers had 10. That's not bad. That's not a bad number. The Jets had 3 guys that had 3 pressures each. That's not bad either. But 1 sack. 1 sack the whole game. So that's what I think, again, if I were Robert Saleh. The pass rush was there. Why didn't it translate? That's what needs to be addressed. So Blunt talks about the wins. I kind of said, I look a little bit more optimistically. I mean, it's going to change as the season goes on, but I've said it before, don't focus on wins. We wanted a rookie reset. That was different with Sam Darnold at the helm. That was, remember, I talked about that. That's a 4th-year quarterback. A 4th-year quarterback is shit or get off the pot. It's shit or get off the pot time. We wanted the rookie reset. We got the rookie reset. It causes us to reset our mentality, to remember rookie head coach, rookie OC, rookie quarterback. We just need to see it moving in the right direction. We need to see everyone grooving together. Corey Davis looking like that wide receiver 1, for example. Elijah Moore stepping out and becoming that guy we expect him to be. The defense continuing to jive. Saleh continuing to adjust and adapt to show that he's not rigid and he understands scheming. That's what we need to see. If we see the right things, honestly, it doesn't matter as much. The numbers aren't as important if we see the right things. It's truly true. And I know I hate to say it because everyone, you know, you want the wins. They're going to come. Rome wasn't built in a day. You can't build a building without a strong foundation. Without the strong foundation, that shit crumbles. We got to build that foundation first. Then we can wrap that building up. Ryan says Mims' touchdown this Sunday. Shout out to Ryan. He's here. I mentioned it before. And again, whether you agree or disagree with Robert Saleh is honestly irrelevant. The point is just what the fact is. He announced that Corey Davis, Elijah Moore, and Braxton Berrios were the top 3 guys. Explain why they got all the targets. Then went even further to explain what Mims had to do to get more targets. Now, we know Keelan Cole and Jamison Crowder are 2 of the better receivers on this team. So they're instantly up there too. That makes Denzel Mims wide receiver 6. So he's going to struggle to see the field. My challenge to him is just like with that 40-yard catch. If you're on the field and you get the opportunity to smoke the corner, do it. Like you need to show, just like I'd said with Bryce Huff. If you want to be the guy, you have to show you're the guy. Because I think Keelan Cole is slept on, to be honest. I mentioned in my article about him. It's nothing against Denzel Mims, and I said that. It's nothing against him. Because again, we're Jet fans. We want our team to succeed. We want to be good and we want to win. Corey Davis is clearly that wide receiver 1. Keelan Cole could be a surprising wide receiver 2. And then you got Elijah Moore and Jamison Crowder in the mix. That could be a damn good 4. That could be a damn good 4 that could honestly put close to 4,000 yards between the 4 of them. It's very possible. So it's very exciting. Stephen pointed out, and I'd said it before, you know, I talked about the Pats offensive line, just, you know, because I know linemen, Mike Uwenu was massively slept on, like massively slept on. He is one of the best young guards in the game. Shaq Mason is very good. David Andrews is getting older. I mean, he's not what he used to be, but he's still damn talented. Trent Brown is a good right tackle, and Isaiah Wynn's a good left tackle. This is a quality offensive line. I mentioned that before. The Jets need to remember that, and fans need to remember that. There's a reason Mac Jones looked good week 1. There's a reason the running game for them was good week 1. They have a quality offensive line. So just keep that in mind. Appreciate Blunt. Blunt says, great show as always. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you. Tom talks about ruling is cheating. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, it depends. It's not filming. Like, that's different. I mean, filming is different, but it depends. But he talks about, you know, being sneaky. I don't 100% remember what it was. I'll have to look it up, to be honest. I don't 100% remember what Matt Rule did, so I could look it up quick. You guys want to bring it up in here quick? I'll be honest, I don't exactly 100% remember. Is it just the James Morgan thing, or is it more? Like, if it's just the James Morgan thing, unfortunately, teams do that all the time. It sucks. It sucks, but teams do that all the time. If you cut a player, it's hard to, argue that, make that point, because the other team can just go, we signed him because he's good. Like, that's it. You can just say we signed him because he's good. So it makes the situation difficult. So that's the situation there. John's here. Appreciate you, John. Appreciate you, Ryan. Talks about Bless playing well. I like our young guys, man. I like Brandon Eccles. I like Bryce Hall. Love their potential on the outside. Guidry and Carter in the slot. Those are my 4 guys. I love the potential of those 4 guys. I really, really do. So I want to thank you guys, like always, for tuning into the Take Flight Spit and Fire podcast. Appreciate you guys tuning in your Friday evening. As you guys know, in 15 minutes, I go live on Weapons Hot. So me, my boys Jimmy, CJ, and Kevin, we're live on Weapons Hot after this. Please check it out. Thank you guys for being here and tuning in like always. I'll see you on Monday at 7 o'clock. Let's kick some ass this weekend. Let's beat the Patriots. Let's win at home. And let's go Jets.